Howdy folks, Todd here with Great Escape Farms. Today I'm doing an 18-month update on plant labels, and I did a 4-month update, and I'll include this in the show notes, and actually I'll include that particular video in the show notes as well in case you want to go back and see 4 months, although all of the results will be in this video. So before I get too much into this video, let me jump back 18 months to the first video I had done, or the first portion of the video that explains methodology and how I'm tracking this stuff. Okay, so I went through and first I created a spreadsheet here, and what I have are the plant labels, and also did a couple pots here on the left-hand side. Across the top, I did the markers here. So we had the Markel Quick Stick paint, which is actually over here, and I knocked that one out of the race early on, and I'll explain why in a moment. Then the Sharpie, which is here, then the Dura ink, then the garden marker, and then just a plain old ordinary black Sharpie there. So I went ahead and I tested all these, and what I did is under each one in the matrix here, I did test the test number. So this was test 2 with this label, B with that marker, and test 2 again with the same label, and test C with a different marker. So each one has a different unique ID on it, and I have each one going all the way through. So test 5, F005, let's find that. Test 5, F005 is a black Sharpie with the plastic plant label 6 by 5/8. And if you'll notice, I have it written on each side. So I'm gonna have one side facing the sun, the other side kind of facing north where it's not getting much sun up here in the northern hemisphere. So I did that for all the plant labels here. You can see the different types I have. This is what I call tree tags here. I actually put that dangling in the wind on the branch on the tree. All the rest of these actually get plugged or pushed down into a pot somewhere. And then I also have pots. Again, I run a nursery business, so I label on the pots themselves instead of putting other things in. And the black Sharpies last anywhere from 6 months up to a year, not much beyond that. So the black Sharpie is on the bottom in this case. So this really shows up the silver here, which is also a Sharpie. I'm hoping that it lasts for a while. And I did the same thing on a gallon pot there. So now the experiment, they're all labeled. I'm gonna go ahead and put these outside, see how long they all last. Again, this is November 23rd. So I will check on them in the springtime, see how they look. And again, next fall, and give you guys a report, let you know about a year or so out. And I guess I would do a separate video after that if I have any other thoughts on these. But the remaining ones, you see I ordered large quantities here. So the tree tags, I have 1,000. These little plant labels here, which will probably go into the 4-inch pot, I have 1,000 of these. I have, I think, only 250 of these, even though it looks like a lot more. These are wood and they are biodegradable, so I need to make sure that they don't biodegrade within a year, but if they last 2 years or 3 years, then I'm good with it. And then again, just some of the ones here. So I'll go ahead and use these in the nursery business and see how I like them, how customers like them, as well as the different markers and how well they actually stand up to the elements. I wanted to show you one thing. This Quick Stick right here, it made it through the very first label, and then I decided to scrap it. And the reason I decided to scrap it, I got it all over my hands here. It got all over here. This is it right here. You can see I was unable to write neatly with it. Let me see if I can get this open with one hand. Yeah, I can. It's just got this great big old fat pen tip on it, and it writes like a soft Crayola crayon. So it's just very difficult to do any kind of precision writing. It just looks sloppy, looks messy, makes a mess out of everything all around. So I will not be using this thing as far as I'm concerned. I'm just going to toss this one in the trash. I have little use for this for plant labels. I'm sure there's some use for it in a warehouse or something else, but certainly not for little plant labels like what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so I have these out. I figured the best place to put them was right in the pot itself. That way I can move them if I have to. I do have the wooden ones in the ground just to get them in a little bit deeper. These are all here, the pots. Actually, I'm gonna move this back just to get full sun on those tags. Again, the backside will not get much sun, so we'll see if there's any difference there. And the one thing that's not here are the tree tags. And the tree tags, I was going to put on a plant, but then I figured they're going to leaf out. So over here, I'll get a little bit of cover when during the summer, when we get the immediate overhead sun from the high noon sun in the summertime. I'll get some shade from the grapevines here, but I will be trimming these up here in the next couple of weeks, and we won't get much leaf cover until later on in the springtime, and with the sun will still be at an angle then, so they'll get a good bit of sun over the winter time. Okay, we are back in present day, so 18 months the plant tags have been in, and I've checked them at the 4-month, the 8-month, the 1 year, and now the 18-month intervals, and I will update you on how they fared. Before I do that, let me show you this particular label right here. So this was a different video that I had done. If you're looking for a permanent one, I'll include a link to the show notes on how I made these, and I can say after 6 years they hold up very well. So let's start with these right here. These were called the white plant labels, and I used these in my annual garden last year, and they were an epic fail. You can see right here that every single one of them just broke. These are just scraps that I picked out of the garden itself. So they absolutely stink, and I would never ever deploy these again. Any that I have left are gonna go straight into the recycle bin, and I will not be deploying these again. Next up for annuals, since we're on annuals, I'll go with the C here. These are the hardwood labels, and they're the most expensive, but they held up good. Every single marker that I tested here, that I got to the testing phase, minus the crayon one, everything was legible. Some of them not horribly awesome. As you'll see as I go through showing you the other labels, E and C showed up great on these. So this is what I will be deploying with my annual vegetables this year, and I'll be putting in quite a few for the farmer's market. Next up, let me cover the 6 5/8, I believe it was, white labels. These are great. These are what I am using for the nursery business of mine, and I put all of these in the plant labels. The two markers, C and E test, I actually lost those labels, and the reason being that was my fault. I let the chickens in here to fertilize the garden area last fall, and they managed to knock these pots off, and in the process they were picking at labels and everything else, so I lost 2 of the labels. Other than that, I was able to recover everything. These labels are great. C and E, the markers seem to hold out great, although I don't have the actual test ones to show it. I do have some in my nursery area, so they did great themselves. These are called T markers, and I am using these in my nursery business at farmers markets and stuff like that. I actually put pricing on these so I can remove them and move them from one plant to the next, and so far they have held up good. You can see that after 1.5 years, test C and E, or marker C and E, did great. D and F, you can't see anything on either side, and actually I should show you this. Both sides of these, so one side was in the sun, one side was on the shade, and I didn't show it on these either. Actually, you can barely see those on the back side. Anyhow, so these worked out great with marker C and marker E. One last actual marker test, which is the vinyl tree tag. Let's go take a look at it. If you remember, they were hanging on the fence here, and you can see that marker C looks good on both the front and the back. D is non-existent on either front or back, so it's totally gone. Test E is good on the back, and it's readable on the front, not perfect. And test F, nothing again, so that would be the plain black Sharpie. And then we had a couple other things, and I wasn't really grading the pots themselves, but I was grading the markers on how they test on these. So the 1 gallon pot, marker C was very readable. Marker E, it's tough to read on the black itself, and that's just because it's black on black, but it actually is very readable on that. And then the 4-inch pot, again, marker C was great. Marker E also is good. Did I do both sides? Yeah, I did both sides on this one. Again, front and back is good. And front and back on this one. Actually, the front on this one, the black is worn off a little bit. But again, on the pots like this, if I'm marking anything down, I've switched over to the Silver Sharpie. Okay, I will start with the labels first. Test 2, which are these plant labels right here. These just suck. I would not recommend these at all. The next labels are the T markers, as they're called, right here. And they were 16 cents each when I purchased them a year and a half ago from Gemplers.com, and that's shown on the spreadsheet here. And they were an overall pass. They actually did well with marker C and E. Next up is the vinyl tree tag, and we just went over and saw those. Those were 3.5 cents each, again, a year and a half ago, and they worked well with marker C and E. Then we have the plastic labels, and the plastic labels are shown here. And these are the ones I use in my nursery business. They hold up very, very well. So I really, really like those. Those were 4 cents each a year and a half ago. And the last one would be the hardwood labels. And this shows them right here. And they are the most expensive. They are 26 cents each, and they are biodegradable. You can see this one, the bottom is off already. Again, it's 18 months, but it is wood, it's hardwood, so it'll take a while, but it will eventually completely break down. The pots themselves, the 4-inch pot and the gallon pot, we actually weren't grading those themselves, but I do use those regularly in my nursery business. So let's talk about the markers. So test B was an immediate fail. That was the one that was like a crayon that I showed you in the very beginning. And again, it sucks. Plant labels is not a good use for that marker. Next up was Silver Sharpie, and it was $4.79 a year and a half ago when I bought it at Gempler.com. However, I found that you can get these at Office Depot, a 3-pack for like $8. So that's where I've been getting them recently, and it's the same thing. It's just silver, metallic silver Sharpie. And next up is the Marcal Dura ink, and that one was a fail. Just overall, it was a fail. Did not hold up at all. Next up was Garden Marker, and I believe it was this one that came from Gemplers, and it worked fine. And then I found another one labeled as Garden Marker on Amazon, and I'll include a link to that in the show notes, and it did just as good. So I'm guessing these might be the same thing, or at least they have the same ingredients in them, because they are just as durable. And then last up is the black Sharpie that you can get at Office Depot or Amazon or anywhere online. And for the most part, it was a fail, because I had a couple tests that were somewhat readable, but most of them, it just was completely non-existent anymore. You couldn't read anything at all. So overall, marker C, which is the Silver Sharpie, was awesome, especially on the black stuff. And on the white tags, the Garden Marker, which had black ink, was awesome. And the overall best performing label, as far as what I use, is the plastic plant label 6 5/8, and the T label, which I use for marking prices and stuff, and it has held up very well. And then the hardwood, I use this for my annuals, and they hold up very, very well. And actually, if I'm only using those for 3 months a year and I go and retrieve them, I could probably use those from year to year. I just have to store them over winter, which is not a big deal. So all of this video was shot in our perennial sheet mulch garden, and you can find videos on how to put this together, as well as soon I will have one on the chicken coop. I'm building a guinea coop in the back, and a whole bunch of other videos on our homestead here. Check that out on our YouTube channel, and we will have a link for that. And subscribe, and we will give you plenty of more information on neat things like this in the coming future.